Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever considered how you might get more out of your property?
Or maybe, just thought about how hard it is to find different kinds of housing options,
Yeah,
affordable ones in Massachusetts.
exactly. If that sounds familiar, you're definitely in the right place. You've asked us to take a deep dive into, well, the really fascinating world of accessory dwelling units, ADUs.
And specifically, the big changes, the landmark changes really in Massachusetts law recently.
Right. So our mission today is to cut through some of the legal stuff, the zoning jargon.
Yeah, it can get dense.
It really can.
Yeah.
We want to give you a clear, concise understanding of what ADUs actually are.
And how these new state laws are shaking things up.
Massively. And maybe most importantly, what this could all mean for you, for your property, for your community.
Right.
We've dug into the sources, the state's new regulations, 7 to 60 CMR 712000,
Mm-hmm.
info straight from mass.gov on ADUs and the Affordable Homes Act,
Okay.
and the specific wording from the 2024 Act itself. So we've got the details.
And what's really interesting here, I think, isn't just the technical rules.
No.
It's the shift this represents,
Yep.
fundamentally. It's not just like adding a shed out back.
Yeah, right.
This is a big strategic move in how housing can actually be developed across the Commonwealth. It's aiming to tackle some really pressing needs.
Needs for different kinds of households, right? Like all stages of life.
Exactly. Young professionals, families, older folks wanting to downsize.
Mm.
It touches a lot of bases.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. What exactly is an accessory dwelling unit?
The simple version.
Yeah.
It's basically a second, completely self-contained home on the same lot as a primary house.
Self-contained meaning it needs its own stuff.
Right. Our sources are clear on this. It needs its own sleeping space, its own cooking facilities like a kitchen or kitchenette, and its own bathroom.
Okay, the essentials. And crucially, a separate entrance.
Yes, that's key. It needs its own way in and out, either
Mm.
directly from the outside or maybe through like a shared hallway. But that hallway has to meet building code for a safe exit.
Gotcha, so it feels like a distinct unit. Now, what about size? Are there limits?
Oh yes, definite limits. The ADU can't be bigger than half the gross floor area of the GFA of the main house,
Or 900 square feet?
whichever is smaller. That's the cap.
Okay, 900 square feet or half the GFA, whichever's less. And GFA, just to clarify, that's the enclosed living space.
Exactly. Think basements, lofts, intermediate floors.
Mm.
It's measured from the inside of the exterior walls.
So it doesn't include, like, crawl spaces,
Yeah.
garages,
Freshman.
unfinished attics.
Correct. Those generally don't count towards the GFA for this calculation.
And what if you have, say, a duplex already, two principal dwellings?
Good question. In that case, you use the GFA of the largest of the principal dwellings on the lot to figure out your maximum ADU size.
Makes sense. And the sources mention different types, right? It's not just one kind of ADU.
Not at all. You've got detached units, like a little backyard cottage.
Okay.
Attached units, maybe an addition. Interior ones, like converting a basement or an attic level.
Or even space above a garage. Or
Well-
converting the garage itself.
Yeah, all possibilities under the definition. That flexibility is really central to the whole idea.
Right.
And if you connect that flexibility to the bigger picture, it's what some people call gentle densification.
Gentle densification.
Yeah, instead of, massive new apartment blocks changing a neighborhood overnight.
Which can cause pushback.
Exactly. This allows housing to grow more organically,
Yeah.
using existing structures, existing lots. It's efficient, often less disruptive.
Okay, that makes sense. And you mentioned this is a statewide thing, not just a few towns experimenting.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
This is where it gets really interesting, as you said. It's a major statewide push.
So back in August 2024, Governor Healy signed the Affordable Homes Act.
Right, Chapter 150 of the Acts of 2024.
And Section 8 of that act specifically changed the main zoning act to allow ADUs.
It laid the groundwork.
It did. And then it empowered the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, EOHLC, to write the specific rules.
Which are these 760 CMR 71.00 regulations.
Exactly. Protected use accessory dwelling units. And those took effect January 31st, 2025.
Okay, so fairly recent.
Very recent. And the core idea, this is the real game changer. A single ADU, they call it a protected use ADU,
Mm-hmm.
up to that 900 square foot limit,
Yeah.
can now be built by right in single family zoning districts.
By right. That term sounds important. What does it actually mean for, say, a homeowner listening right now?
It's huge. By right basically means if your plan meets the clear objective rules set by the state and any reasonable local rules.
Reasonable being the key word there.
Absolutely. If you meet those rules, the town or city has to approve it.
So no more going to the zoning board hoping they're in a good mood, no more subjective denials.
Largely, yes. It removes that discretionary approval process, that unpredictable hurdle where local boards could just say no based on vague concerns. It standardizes things.
That sounds like a massive shift. But how does the state balance that? Encouraging housing, but not totally ignoring local concerns about neighborhood character or infrastructure.
That's the tightrope walk, isn't it? And the answer the state came up with is this distinction between prohibited regulations and reasonable regulations.
Okay, so things towns absolutely cannot do anymore.
Exactly. The law draws a really clear line. Big one first. Owner occupancy requirements are out.
Meaning the town can't force the owner to live in either the main house or the ADU.
Correct. That requirement is gone. Think about how that opens things up for investment properties or just flexibility.
Wow, okay. That is big. What else is prohibited?
Parking requirements. This is another major one, especially closer to cities.
Uh-huh.
If your property is outside half a mile from a transit station, like the T, commuter rail, ferry, main bus station,
Okay.
the town can only require one extra parking spot for the ADU, just one.
And if you're inside that half-mile radius,
Mm-hmm.
closer to the transit.
Then they can require 0 additional parking spaces. None.
0. Wow. That really pushes transit-oriented living.
It absolutely does. It removes a huge cost and space barrier for ADUs in those walkable, transit-accessible areas.
Okay, what else can towns not do?
They can't limit who lives there based on things like income, age, family relationship, or if they're a student.
So no restrictions on renting only to family or seniors or anything like that?
Nope. Also, they can't put caps or quotas on the total number of these protected use ADUs allowed in town.
So no saying we'll only allow 50 ADUs total.
Not for these by right ones. And these ADUs don't count towards density limits either.
That helps get around some common objections about overcrowding.
Precisely. And one more thing they can't dictate. Whether the ADU has to be attached to the main house or detached. That's up to the homeowner's preference and site constraints.
Okay, so taking all that together, it really does remove some of the biggest, most common roadblocks that municipalities used to put up, intentionally or not.
It streamlines things significantly. It targets those frequent barriers.
So if that's what they can't do, what can they still regulate? You mentioned reasonable regulations.
Right. So while a lot is off the table, towns can still impose reasonable rules. But the law defines what's unreasonable.
How so?
A rule is unreasonable if basically it doesn't serve a real local interest or doesn't logically connect to that interest.
Oh,
Or even if it does have some connection, it's still unreasonable if it effectively kills the project, like making it way too expensive for no good reason, or interferes massively with the ADU's use without really achieving much for the town's interest.
So it prevents towns from using seemingly neutral rules as a backdoor way to stop ADUs.
That seems to be the intent. So what can they regulate reasonably? Think about the how and where.
Like what it looks like.
Exactly. They can set clear, objective, measurable design standards for the outside materials, appearance, to help it fit in.
But objective is key there, right? Not just, we don't like the look of it.
Correct. Though there's a small exception. If you're in a designated historic district, the town can have more specific or different design rules, but even those still can't be unreasonable.
Okay. What about placement on the lot? Size, height?
Yes, they can set dimensional standards, setbacks from property lines, how much of the lot is covered, open space requirements, building height, number of stories.
But there's a catch.
Big catch. Those rules generally can't be more restrictive than what they require for the main house, the principal dwelling, or any single-family home in that district.
So they can't suddenly demand a 50-foot setback just for the ADU when houses only need 20.
Exactly. And crucially, they absolutely cannot require a minimum lot size specifically for an ADU.
That's significant. So you can't use, oh, the lot's too small as an excuse if it's already a legal single-family lot.
Correct. If the lot exists legally, you can generally build an ADU on it, size permitting.
What about utilities? Safety?
They can regulate those connections, emergency access, but again, not more strictly than state codes like the fire code already require.
And they can't just force you to get a whole separate water or sewer line?
Not unless the utility company itself or another state law specifically requires it for some technical reason. The town can't just add that burden on its own.
Okay. Environmental rules, like septic systems.
Yes, things like Title V for septic systems still apply. But again, the standard is not more restrictive than what's required for a regular single-family home.
So, fair application of existing health and safety rules.
Exactly. Site plan review is also allowed.
But what does that involve? Is that where they can trip you up?
It's supposed to be very limited for these by right ADUs. Clear, objective, non-discretionary. Basically checking that your plan meets the defined rules.
A checklist, almost, not a negotiation.
That's the idea. It shouldn't be an opportunity for them to impose extra conditions or deny it subjectively.
Okay. What about things like impact studies, fees?
Towns can't require special impact studies or fees for an ADU if they don't already require those same things for building a principal single-family dwelling.
Parity, again.
Yes. And they also can't prohibit or overregulate modular ADUs more than the state building code already does.
Which helps keep costs down, potentially.
Could do, yeah. And this one's important for older neighborhoods. What if your house or lot is already non-conforming? Meaning it doesn't quite meet current zoning. Maybe it's too close to the lot line or the lot itself is small.
Yeah, lots of older properties are like that.
Towns cannot prohibit an ADU just because the existing structure or lot is non-conforming, as long as the ADU itself can meet the building code, these state ADU rules, and other state laws.
So it unlocks potential on properties that might have been stuck before.
Exactly. It prevents using those pre-existing nonconformities as a reason to deny an ADU.
Okay. Seems like the state tried to cover a lot of the ways towns might restrict these. Is there anything towns do have clear authority over?
One major area, short-term rentals.
Ah, the Airbnb question.
Yep. Municipalities can establish restrictions or even outright prohibitions on using these protected use ADUs for short-term rentals, as defined in the state law on short-term rentals.
So towns can still decide if they want ADUs used for long-term housing versus transient lodging.
Correct. That control remains local.
And it's worth remembering, right, that while the state sets this minimum standard, this floor,
Yes.
municipalities can always choose to be more permissive. They could allow bigger ADUs or relax other rules even further if they want to encourage them more.
Absolutely. This is the baseline requirement across the state, not a ceiling on what towns can allow.
Okay. What about edge cases? Like, what if someone wants 2 ADUs?
Good question. The by right protection only applies to the first ADU on a lot that's single protected use ADU.
So for a second one or a third?
For any additional ADUs beyond that first one, local zoning must require a special permit.
Back to that discretionary review process for anything beyond the first one.
Exactly. It's not an unlimited green light for multiple units by right.
Okay. And what about environmentally sensitive areas? Floodplains, aquifer protection zones?
Towns can require a special permit for ADUs in those specific overlay districts, but only if they also require a special permit for building a principal dwelling there.
So again, parity. They can't single out ADUs for special review in those zones unless they do it for regular houses too.
Correct. And even then, the criteria for that special permit have to be clear, objective, and non-discretionary, tied to the specific environmental concern.
Makes sense. Now, what about ADUs that already existed before these new rules kicked in? Maybe someone got approval years ago, but it came with lots of conditions.
Like maybe an owner occupancy requirement or parking rules that are now prohibited.
Yeah, exactly. What happens to those old conditions?
This is pretty significant. The law says any of those old conditions that fall into the prohibited category or would be considered unreasonable under the new rules are now unenforceable as of January 31st, 2025.
Wow. Even if the ADU didn't quite meet local zoning back when it was approved.
Even then, if the condition imposed is now illegal or unreasonable under state law, the town can't enforce it anymore.
So that effectively grandfathers those existing units into the new, more permissive system, at least regarding those specific conditions.
That's a good way to put it. It could immediately free up some existing units from outdated restrictions.
Which is huge, because that's existing housing stock becoming potentially more useful or available without even needing new construction.
Exactly. A quicker impact, potentially.
Okay, so we've waded through a lot of the legal details.
We have.
Let's zoom out. What does this all mean? Why did the state do this? What are the benefits supposed to be for you, the listener, and for Massachusetts generally?
Right. The why. And the sources we looked at highlight a whole bunch of benefits. It's pretty compelling.
For homeowners first, maybe?
Yeah, for property owners like you, it creates options. Big one. Rental income.
Helping with the mortgage, property taxes, upkeep.
Definitely. It can make owning a home more affordable. It also provides, lower cost housing options right on your property for family.
Like adult kids saving up for their own place, or maybe aging parents who want to be nearby.
Exactly. The law doesn't require occupants to be family, but that's a common use. It allows multi-generational living or just keeping family close.
And more options for older adults specifically, right? Either for them to live in the ADU or maybe have a caregiver live there.
Yes, it enables seniors to age in place, potentially downsizing into the ADU while renting the main house or having support close by. More flexibility as needs change.
Okay, so clear benefits for owners. What about for renters? Is this supposed to help them too?
Big time. The main goal is adding supply, especially smaller units.
Which are often in short supply and high demand.
Exactly. It adds more rental options to the housing inventory, meeting the needs of singles, couples, small households who don't need a big single-family house.
And potentially allows people to stay in neighborhoods they might otherwise be priced out of.
That's a key hope. Keeping long-term residents in the communities they love, where they work, where their kids go to school, when maybe buying isn't feasible or finding an affordable apartment is tough.
Okay, and then for the state, for the community as a whole, what's the bigger picture benefit?
It directly tackles the housing crisis, point blank. By enabling more units, it increases affordable and diverse housing opportunities.
Affordable here, meaning potentially less expensive than other options, not necessarily subsidized.
Generally, yes. Smaller units tend to be less expensive. It also provides more accessible housing options, ground floor units, potentially for seniors or people with disabilities, and for their caregivers.
And there's a sustainability angle too, isn't there?
Huge one. It encourages compact growth. Instead of sprawling outwards, building new subdivisions on undeveloped land.
Which uses up open space and requires new infrastructure.
Right. This uses existing land, existing structures, existing roads, and utilities. It's much more efficient and environmentally friendly in that sense.
Plus, the units themselves are smaller.
Exactly. Smaller footprint, typically using less water, less electricity than a larger home, so a more sustainable housing type overall.
So if you connect all that, it really paints ADUs not just as individual units, but as this incremental yet potentially powerful tool for addressing housing shortages.
Right.
While leveraging resources we already have and doing it in a way that fits into existing neighborhoods, avoiding some of the impacts of large-scale development.
The strategic way to add supply, gently, as you said earlier.
Yeah. It's trying to thread that needle.
And it seems the state understands that just changing the law isn't enough. Towns need help implementing this, right?
Absolutely. Policy on paper is one thing, making it work on the ground is another.
So the state is providing support. EOHLC, working with groups like MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and MHG, the Mass Housing Partnership.
Well-known planning and housing groups.
They've developed tools for cities and towns. There's model ADU zoning language they can adapt.
So towns don't have to reinvent the wheel trying to figure out compliant language.
Exactly. And a municipal checklist to help them review their existing bylaws and figure out what needs changing.
Practical tools.
Yeah. And webinars, trainings, recorded ones are available to walk officials through the new law, the model zoning.
Guidance and education.
Plus financial help. There are grants available through programs like the Community One Stop for Growth.
Funding to actually do the work of updating the zoning.
Yes, things like the Community Planning Grant Program or the Housing Choice Grant Program can potentially fund that work.
That removes a potential excuse of, we don't have the resources to update our bylaws.
Right. And for legal clarity, the Attorney General's office, their municipal law unit, will be reviewing town bylaws related to ADUs and publishing decisions.
So there will be official interpretations if disputes arise.
Yes. And other agencies are involved too, like Mass DP on Title V septic rules for ADUs, Mass GIS on how to properly address these new units.
So it's a coordinated effort across different state agencies.
It seems like it.
You know, that whole approach really underscores something important about making policy work.
What's that?
It can't just be top-down mandates. It needs that collaborative piece, the guidance, the tools, the funding, to help the local level adapt and actually succeed with the new rules. It's partnership, not just directives.
That's a really good point. So we have covered a lot of ground here. A real deep dive into Massachusetts' new ADU policy.
We sure have.
We've unpacked what an ADU is, the nitty-gritty of the new by right law and the regulations.
What towns can and importantly cannot do anymore.
Right, and the wide range of benefits these units can offer for you as a property owner, for renters looking for options, and for the Commonwealth as a whole trying to meet housing needs. So for you listening, if you're a homeowner or just curious, this really does open up potential new opportunities, maybe to create housing, maybe generate some income, maybe provide a flexible spot for family.
All while being part of the solution to the state's housing challenges.
Exactly. And of course, if you have specific questions about your property, the next step is always
Talk to your local folks.
right. Contact your city or town planning department or the building department. They'll have the local specifics.
Definitely the place to start for a specific project.
Okay. So to wrap us up, maybe a final thought to leave people mulling over.
Sure. We've talked a lot about the individual benefits and the statewide goals,
Yeah.
but thinking longer term,
Yeah.
given this big push for ADUs as this compact, sustainable, neighborhood-friendly housing solution,
Hmm.
how might all these seemingly small additions scattered across countless properties, how might they collectively start to reshape the actual character, the feel, and the affordability of our traditional single-family neighborhoods over, say, the next 10 years?
Interesting.
What kind of ripple effects could that have on things we haven't even talked much about, like local schools, traffic patterns, demand for public transit, even just the social fabric of communities, as these incremental changes really start to add up? It's something to watch.